The midday sun beat down on the polished glass of Summit Autoworks, sending ripples of reflected light across the concrete lot. From a distance, the dealership looked like a monument to success, rows of shiny trucks lined up in perfect symmetry, fluttering flags catching the wind just enough to seem patriotic, purposeful. The building itself stood tall and sleek, trimmed in chrome, with wide showroom windows offering glimpses of leather interiors and salesmen moving with practiced ease. Engines rumbled as customers test drove their dreams. It was the kind of place where trust was built by appearances alone. But beyond the manicured hedges and spotless pavement, across the street in the shade of a faded gas station awning sat an old Dodge Ram. Solomon Reed didn't look like the founder of a multi-million-dollar dealership chain. At 42, he looked like any other working man. Worn flannel shirt, jeans dusted with dry mud, boots scuffed and faded. A baseball cap shielded his face, pulled low enough to hide the deep lines of thought etched across his brow. He exhaled slowly, taking in the familiar structure of the place he'd once called home. The dealership hadn't changed much on the outside, but inside, everything had shifted. Solomon had worked for years to build Summit Autoworks, pouring sweat, long hours, and the teachings of his father into the business. But now, the place had become something different, something Solomon no longer recognized. He'd started receiving troubling complaints from customers. Hidden fees, last-minute contract changes, quotes that didn't match the final price. The worst one, though, was a letter from a retired veteran who claimed he'd been cheated out of his savings. Solomon passed the concerns on to corporate compliance, but the answers were always the same. We've looked into it. No violations found. But Solomon knew better. Lies didn't come alone. They brought patterns, whispers, silences in the wrong places. And today, he was going to find out the truth. Solomon squinted across the lot, noticing the store's new sales manager Eli Carter, the man who had become the face of Summit Autoworks. Eli was tall, sharp-eyed, and sharp-dressed. He looked more like a model than someone who should be running a dealership. Solomon didn't trust him. Not one bit. That's why today, Solomon wasn't stepping into his own dealership as the CEO. He was stepping in as Marcus Taylor, a small business owner from Statesville looking for a new work truck. With a final glance at the sprawling lot, Solomon grabbed his bag and walked toward the front door, each step slow, deliberate. Today, he wasn't the CEO of Summit Autoworks. He was Marcus Taylor, and he was going to see how the business was really running from the other side of the counter. As he stepped through the door, the sunlight spilled across the asphalt, and the door creaked closed behind him. "Morning, sir," a young salesman greeted as Solomon stepped onto the lot. He was eager, too eager, his shirt too tight, his grin a little too polished. "What can I help you with today? Something tough, or something pretty?" Solomon caught the hint of judgment, the subtle assumption that all customers could be boxed into categories. He smiled half-heartedly, sticking to his character. "Name's Marcus. Been saving up for a while. Need something that can haul, not pose for pictures. Run a hauling business out near Statesville. Lots of weight. Rough roads. I don't need chrome. I need grit." The salesman, Damien, extended his hand, the firm handshake of someone who had been trained for this. "Well, you've come to the right place. I'm Damien. Been with Summit for about 6 months. 6 months. Just enough time to be trained into whatever this place had become." They walked down the rows of trucks, stopping at a sleek 2021 GMC Sierra 1500. "This one here's a heavy-duty package," Damien said. "Just overdue law 40,000, but we have a few incentives I might be able to work in. And it comes with our Summit Protection Package, covers everything you'd need." Solomon tilted his head. That package included in the price. Damien hesitated, just for a second, but Solomon caught it. "It's standard with our trucks now," Damien said smoothly, recovering fast. "Most customers appreciate the peace of mind it provides." Solomon squinted at the price sticker, noticing the small discrepancy. "What's in that package?" "Oh, extended warranty, tire protection, dent repair, roadside assistance, the usual. But I'll go over it in detail if you're seriously considering it." Solomon nodded slowly, filing away the information. That package wasn't standard. It was an optional add-in. That meant one thing: profit padding. He opened the driver's side door, climbed inside, and took in the sterile, new car smell. Everything about the place, from the shiny truck to the forced politeness of the sales pitch, felt fake. "Mind if I pop the hood?" Solomon asked. "Sure," Damien said, stepping ahead and pulling the latch. Solomon leaned in, scanning the engine. Not for the specs, but for the salesman's reaction. Damien glanced over toward the showroom twice. The second glance lingered just a little too long. Solomon followed his line of sight to Eli Carter, standing behind the glass, arms folded, staring intently. It wasn't a glance of curiosity. It was a glance of control. Eli wasn't checking on the sale. He was checking on the process, ensuring it was all going according to the script. They took the truck for a quick test drive, with Damien doing most of the talking. He mentioned his bonuses, how the more people upgraded their lives, the more the company rewarded him. Solomon didn't say much, keeping his thoughts to himself. He recognized the pattern: urgency over clarity, emotion over logic. This wasn't about selling trucks. This was about selling a feeling. Back in the showroom, the atmosphere changed. The friendly facade was gone, replaced with the cold, transactional vibe Solomon had come to expect. They sat at a desk near Eli's office. Solomon could feel the shift. This was no longer about helping a customer. It was about making a sale. Damien pulled up the price breakdown. The base price of the truck had crept up to $41,750. And then, he said, with our summit protection, processing fees, documentation charges. He stopped. The tone of his voice shifted, and Solomon noticed it immediately. What kind of processing fees are we talking about? Solomon asked, casual but firm. Before Damien could answer, a voice from behind broke the quiet. And I'm telling you that's not what we agreed on. Solomon turned slightly, enough to see the man sitting at the next desk. Gregory Miller. His uniform was faded, his hands worn. A family photo was sitting on the desk, showing 3 kids around a lopsided birthday cake. Solomon's heart tightened. He'd lived this moment before. 25 years ago, his own father had been swindled by a similar dealership, crushed by a predatory contract that smiled while it took everything. Gregory's voice cracked, no longer shouting, but filled with quiet defeat. Please, he whispered. I've got 3 kids. My oldest just got into college. This truck was supposed to get me through her first year. Eli's response was cold, dismissive. You should have read the contract more carefully. The fees are listed clearly. Solomon's stomach churned. This wasn't just a bad deal. This was a system built to exploit people, to strip them of everything they had under the guise of customer service. The moment he'd been waiting for arrived. He stood slowly, his fists clenched, but his voice calm. Before we finish anything, he said, I'd like a full breakdown of all the charges. No surprises like that other fellow got. Damien looked around nervously. Yeah, of course, he said, already sounding less sure of himself. Solomon leaned in closer. Tell me something, man. All those fees that guy was talking about, they're going to show up on mine too. Damien hesitated, looking around. Then he leaned in, his voice dropping. Some of these fees, they ain't exactly standard. Eli's got this system. We keep the initial quote low, real friendly, you know? Get people hooked. Then when it's time to sign, that's when the rest comes in. Solomon's eyes narrowed. And if a salesman doesn't go along with it? Damien's expression darkened. They get reassigned. Early morning shifts, late Sundays, no leads. And if you push back too much. He glanced over his shoulder. You heard about Josh? The guy who sold that truck to Mr. Miller? He didn't play the game. Now he's gone. Fired. Solomon felt a wave of anger rise, but he kept his face still, calculating. What does fired really mean? Damien swallowed hard. Technically, let go for performance. But we all know why. Solomon's mind was working in overdrive. He needed more. He needed proof. His hand brushed against his pocket, checking to make sure the recorder was still running. Every word, every hesitation, it was all part of the record. Just then, a young couple entered the showroom. Solomon watched as another salesman immediately zeroed in on them, using the same tactics he'd seen so many times before. We'll work with your budget, he said, guiding them toward the shiniest truck, laying the bait. All our trucks come with our Summit Advantage package. Solomon stood up, his jaw clenched. He needed to step away to think. Mind if I use the restroom? He asked. Damien, grateful for the break, waved him off. Down the hall to the right. Solomon made his way past the customer lounge, glancing around. A weathered farmer sat in one of the leather chairs, flipping through a contract. Across from him, a retired couple debated the loyalty rebate, unsure if it was real or just a number pulled from thin air. Solomon made his way past the break room, past the framed plaques on the wall, Best Customer Satisfaction 2020, Community Excellence 2021. They looked hollow now, like trophies stolen by the wrong team. When Solomon returned to Damien's desk, he had seen enough. This wasn't just one rogue manager. This was systemic corruption, a culture of quiet coercion, wrapped in smiling service. A pyramid of pressure where those who questioned were silenced and those who complied were rewarded. He sat back down. Let's keep going. I want to see every single charge in writing, he said, the mask slipping slightly. But deep down, he knew the time for playing the customer was ending. The reckoning was coming. What do you think? Have you ever been caught in a situation where a business tried to take advantage of you? Or maybe you've been in a place where you saw someone else being mistreated. Drop your thoughts in the comments below and let's discuss. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories like this, the ones that remind us why honesty is the real way to success.